My first actual shootout at 17 years old.
I just want to preface this by saying a few things. I'm not trying to glamorize anything I write about. I was a lost, dumb kid with no guidance other than a group of savages and drug dealers that took me in when nobody else cared. I'm not looking for sympathy or pulling the whole poor me, this is why I was this way card. IDK what all I'm gonna write about on this account. But to be clear, I chose to do these things and be in these environments. I wasn't forced. I didn't really have parents. I watched my mom get stabbed in front on me when I was 5, watched her get beaten at least weekly, and would pee in my bed because I was too scared to go to the bathroom. Then I'd get beat for peeing in my bed. Then she disappeared and later died. I dealt with every possible kind of abuse you can imagine during my childhood. I started selling hard drugs at 15 because my dad would steal everything I had, even the money I'd save up to buy my own clothes to support his drug habit. Nobody cared whether I went to school, and I didn't have any positive examples. The internet wasn't quite what it is now back then, so the amount of information I had access to was limited. I'm only saying that those things contributed, but I made the decision to live that lifestyle. I still chose to be in these environments and situations. Would I have been different if I had a halfway normal life? Almost certainly so. But still, these were my decisions. I've battled with these decisions, memories, and feelings for years. After a lot of introspection, seeking forgiveness from whatever creator is out there, and years of pain and PTSD, I've made a lot of progress as a person in general. Do I feel bad about any of it anymore? Not anymore. I've forgiven myself for everything I did, and that's what matters to me, whether someone else likes it or not. I used to want someone to get me or care on some level about these things and understand why I was that way. Now I couldn't care less and don't want or deserve sympathy or understanding. But sometimes I enjoy telling some of my story. With all of that being said, here's the story of my first actual shootout. I was 17 and around a group of guys that were, for lack of a better word, bloodthirsty. We would hang out in the inner city a lot, the worst of the worst areas where violence was daily and almost casual. We lived in a suburb right outside of the city, but this suburb was already a shithole. Drugs, shootings, groups of kids like us. But still, we felt like we had to prove ourselves to the guys we were meeting out there. So one night we go to a block party. If I'm not mistaken, it was around July 4th. Gangs weren't a big thing in this city, at least not in the traditional sense. But it was more so neighborhood against neighborhood and little cliques of guys. There has to be 100 people at this party. The street is blocked off, there's a DJ, everyone is drinking, smoking weed, and likely on ecstasy, which probably wasn't actually ecstasy in hindsight. If there were 100 people, then there was at least 30 guns. Impossibly the only white person around, LOL. Well, my little group of 5 guys or so are just chilling near my friend's car smoking. We have another 5 guys or so that knows us and are cool with us. It's their neighborhood, so all in all, we're good. Some time goes by and a couple guys come up to us and say, "Hey bro, I know y'all aren't from here. There's some PPL on the way and it's about to go down. We don't want y'all getting hurt, so you need to leave now." Again, we wanted to get into something crazy. For ourselves and at least a little bit to show them that even if we're not from there, that we can hang. We were idiots, obviously. Sure enough, after about 10 minutes, the shooting starts. It's dark as hell aside from some headlights, the shitty little DJ booth, AMD, the streetlights. When the shooting starts, you can see the flashes from the shots coming from all directions. It was confusing and disorienting. I'll be honest, I didn't know who was who, and I didn't want to just shoot someone just to do it. But I see these flashes coming from probably 30-40 yards away that seemed more so directed at us. I figured that's as good as it gets for certainty, and everyone else is shooting. I shoot probably 3 times before I second-guess my target. This car comes speeding through the party. There's a guy hanging out of the window shooting into the crowd. My best friend has a pump shotgun, aims, hits the door that guy is hanging out of. He slips back into the car slows, rocks side to side for a second, and then speeds off. There's a kid younger than us that we were cool with. He has an old, almost cowboy-looking long revolver. It's so old and cheap that he has to cock the hammer back before each shot, literally like a Western movie. He empties the first 6 shots, reloads, gets shot through his foot while reloading, and still empties the other 6. After all is said and done, everyone seems mostly okay, but there's one car in the middle of the lot that's not okay. This kid was 17, had a full scholarship to a Division I school, and had nothing to do with anything. He just happened to be from that neighborhood. We walked over and the interior lights were on. His brains were on the dashboard, and he was still slightly moving. I remember his cousin screaming for help, crying and trying to hold his head together. That's the first person that I saw die in front of me. We all start getting into the cars. Cops and ambulance are on the way. They took probably at least 20 minutes to get there BTW. We went to the hospital to take the kid that was shot through his foot. We went back for a second to get some stuff that we left, and the cops were there. They had cut open milk jugs and were just throwing the shell casings in, 100s of them. They obviously didn't care about actually solving anything, but who can blame them? They literally walked through the crowd, kinda half-heartedly mumbling, "Did you see anything? No? Yeah, figures." Not a single person or resident near there saw anything. It was crazy to me to witness that. Oh yeah, my friend with the shotgun at some point came to me and asked to see my gun. I think this was before we went to the hospital. He took out the magazine and said, "You only shot 2 or 3 times. Did it jam?" I said, "No, I just didn't know who I was shooting at, and I don't want to hit just anyone." He looked at me with this crazy look in his eyes, as serious as he could be, and said, "Fuck that. Next time you empty that shit and hit anybody that isn't with us. Shoot anyone that you don't know. Do you understand?" Yeah, I understand. You'd think that would be fucking insane enough for me to make some drastic changes to my life, especially at 17. But it wasn't, and I just went deeper and deeper into that rabbit hole of chaos and destruction. It's been 16 years since then, and honestly, it feels like a different lifetime. I almost can't believe I lived through these things and wanted more. At this point, I don't think you could look at me and fathom that was my life. I'm fit, somewhat good-looking, pretty well-spoken, in the gym most days. I think a pretty good dad overall considering. It's just crazy to remember some of this.
I ruined a parade.
Well, the title pretty much says it. It wasn't as dramatic as you think. This was about maybe 2015 when I still had my 4th gen. I ended up, for whatever reason, Harrow didn't have a car available. So he asked, blew up my phone until I drove over to give him a ride wherever he just had to go. In order to get onto his street, you have to go around a small roundabout. So I took the 2nd exit, since the 1st exit leads to a small area where they fixed up a bunch of hipster bars. So whenever I picked up Harrow, I usually had to go around the block and use part of that street, as the Camaro was too large for me to back up without having to rock it. To be fair, I used to going around the block anyway, so after he got in, I put it in first. And as I turned around the block, I saw a parade marching, which I completely forgot they had fixed up the old cracked up little bars, so of course they would do something like that occasionally. As I first see this, I say, "Fuck Harrow, did you know there was a fucking parade?" He said he didn't know, so I just grumbled and waited until it passed. When I saw what I thought was the end, I went and turned the car toward the other way, figuring I'd take a convoluted right at the light, then go down another main road and do a giant rectangle to get to the road I actually want to be on. But as I turned left, I ended up staring nose to nose with a red Eldorado convertible with a dancing wolf in it. And, after overcoming the initial shock, I put it in reverse and looked out my back window, only to see a little rusty gold Saturn had slid right up to my back bumper and refused to back up. So I'm panicking, I'm looking out my back window, and then out my windshield at the dancing wolf, all hoping that somehow tough guy in the Saturn gets over his "I'm not backing down" ego. Yes, one of those. Had a similar instance, Oker trying to get a Magnum out of a parking garage in Reno. I could see the look on this asshole's face though, his windshield. I keep thrashing my head, hoping Toof Guy figures out the only way the big plastic boat in front of him is moving is backwards, and hopefully before the cops show up. Mercifully, he does. I back up and do a few little rocks so I can point my back bumper to Harrow Street, then reverse as I drive by the Saturn. I see the hateful scowl in his face, so I stick my finger out the window and nod and say, "Yeah, fuck you too, pal." Then, with the car now pointing the correct way, I floored it down the street, hoping to get out before an extremely easy-to-recognize car got called in. In my general early 20s stupidity, I completely forgot when I put my foot down. I was driving the way that would take me by the station, so I calmed it down after running a stop sign I forgot, was on the way to the roundabout, then breathed a sigh of relief that I didn't get lit up as I flicked onto the main street.
Thank you for watching Reddit Stories. Please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. May you all have a blessed day.